Okay, on the way, I'll go on. You can see, right, meeting is now streaming live on Facebook. Okay, and I will
Can you all see me? Can see me, right? Okay, streaming live on Facebook. Okay, good. So when we are streaming live like that, there is no, okay? Are there any feedback?
Yeah, I can hear the feedback on. You have to mute the video lah. Yep. Okay, we are live. Okay, I will do the sharing onto Future Ready Tutor. Give me a second. Share to a group. Okay, Future Ready Tutor is shared there already.
Okay, good. I muted my video, so should be fine already.
Yeah, but I will continue to monitor here lah. Yeah, and I will monitor the Future Ready Tutor group if there's any. But anyway, it's live already. Okay, so yes, we can begin.
Okay. Good. All right. Okay. So yeah. So welcome everyone. So this is the first session of our PIE. So what is PIE? It's Profitable, Impactful Educator. So it's a project that is started by Jeffrey and I. So we, in the past 1 year, we all have benefited greatly from this tutor community. That's called Tutor Assemble. And we have learned so much from fellow tutors. And we realized that actually there are lots of good stuff that fellow tutors have up their sleeve. So more than meets the eyes, not just tutors. Okay, one of the person that we learned from is actually Gary. So Gary is very, very good at what he does. So today we get Gary to talk about branding for tutors. And we think that this is a very, very good time because you know, students are going to graduate soon. And once they graduate, you probably would be worried about where does your next cohort come from. So today we want to ask Gary to share. I think he will blow your mind with the things that he shared. Okay, so Gary, you ready to share all your good stuff?
Yep, all good.
Okay, so I have prepared a few questions for you. Right, so the first question is actually, how do I set myself apart from other tutors?
Okay, I think in the context of like, for tutors, right? A lot of it is, I mean, one of the common problems I always hear from tutors is that they feel that it's English tuition or it's math tuition or it's science tuition, right? So for a lot of people, they feel like, how do I say something different? Like maybe last time people used to say like, I'm an ex-MOE tutor, or I'm like, I have 14 years of experience, that kind of thing. But increasingly, I think the tuition market is getting very saturated. And then for some of them, maybe you feel like you can't set yourself apart and stuff like that. So usually, I would say there are two main ways to do this. One of them is basically you set yourself apart with like a unique kind of methodology. So I find that with a lot of tutors that I work with, almost certainly there will be a certain process by which they take their students from kind of like whichever grade they are scoring now, all the way to their desired grade, which is usually like an A or A star or A1 kind of thing. So as a tutor, maybe you want to kind of like just break down your process and start to examine like what are the steps you take from 0 all the way to 100. Like for example, I know that for tutors, when you're failing, right, and then you're trying to get to a C or trying to get to a B, it's very different from a B trying to get to an A and so on. So if you can outline this whole process from start to finish, and you kind of like, it's a process is true and you kind of repeat with your students all the time, then that will form like part of your unique methodology. And of course, when you're trying to explain to parents, you must come from their point of view and how much they understand. So as a parent, right, if let's say I'm not too involved in teaching my child, how can you say in a way which I understand what is your process? And also it makes sense to me, like your process kind of like makes sense to me that it should get them to the result that they want. then this by saying this methodology and then coining a term or setting it, making it kind of like your method, then you kind of like can set yourself apart quite easily. The other kind of way is by we brand, kind of like we set the tutors apart by using stories. For example, there are certain tutors, right? For example, they happen to be a group of, say, former scholars, or they happen to be all come from a similar kind of background. Maybe I even had one center I heard before is like all the ex-teachers are like HODs and things like that. So this is something that can be interesting in your history that you can use as kind of like a story to kind of brand yourself. So very, very different backgrounds. I'm sure like there are tutors that come from MOE, there are tutors that come from like private tutor kind of background. For all of them, it's quite different. You can even share your kind of like personal journey. So for some tutors, they even have kind of like, they used to struggle in math and then they kind of like did these certain things. They got good at it and then their friends' parents ask them to tutor their friends. And you can kind of like use that to kind of like build your story. And I believe that for every tutor, the story is quite different. So when you can again communicate that in your advertising or your marketing, then you kind of like set yourself apart. So to kind of like quick recap is branding yourself using your own personal story, your student stories, or you can brand yourself, or rather set yourself apart using your unique methodology. Yeah. Hope that makes sense to you. Yeah.
Yeah. So it makes sense to me. In fact, I think you ever conducted this internal training for us. I think you have a very well thought out set of methodology that you advise your tutor clients, right? So I think what I hear from you is that we need to really dig deep inside us to find out how we are different. Yeah. So is there any so you talk about that we can actually talk about our personal journey, or we can talk about students' journey. Yeah. So how important, what kind of difference does it make to our clients, right, when we tell these stories instead of just saying that I'm a good tutor?
Okay. When I work with tutors, right, I always try to identify what is their ideal parent, who is their ideal student. So normally when correct me if I'm wrong, but for tutors who have tutored like for some time, right, let's say 3 to 5 years and so on, right, you normally tend to find that actually most of my students or most of my parents have this kind of profile that seems to like they keep coming to me. So that is the kind of like segment which I kind of identify, and then we share all the stories that's relevant to them. So the key thing is like resonance. So when you share stories that kind of like is a certain kind of parent that you have helped, and then it's a certain kind of student that you have helped the before and after, then a parent that has come from a similar kind of background, they can resonate because to them it will be like, hey, this is like this tutor is talking about me, but then it's like another parent. So for them, instantly you set yourself apart because there are a lot of different like parent journeys and they come from all like different kind of environment. For example, like someone failing trying to get a good score and someone trying to secure A star is very different stories. So when they if you kind of like try to try to narrow down and kind of zone in on that kind of stories that you tend to resonate with, then you tend to attract more of the parents that you want to serve, which is also quite important to me because I think for most tutors, you also don't want to attract everyone. You don't really serve. I've not met any tutor at least who serves all the market. They kind of like you kind of like prefer this kind of parent or prefer this kind of student. So if you share stories relating to that, or if your own personal story kind of like resonates with that, then chances are of you attracting so-called higher quality inquiries, and the right kind of parent will be a lot higher, and that will also kind of like make your marketing process easier as well. You don't have to kind of like keep dealing with inquiries that you find is so-called low quality, or they are just like look-see because you have a too generic kind of message. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing from you is that it is already not so advisable to bring a message out there to say that, hey, I'm somebody who produced this kind of grades. So it is not that useful anymore, in your opinion. Is that right? To just talk about the kind of grades that I produce. or how many A1s under me, that sort of things?
Yeah, I would definitely think so. So just to kind of like quote an example, right? There used to be a point like maybe 5-10 years ago when all you had to do was say ex-MOE teachers, 15 years of experience, small class size, come and sign up now, correct? So there was a point in time where that was unique because maybe the quality of tutors used to be lower. I don't know. I didn't really do it at that time, so I'm not very sure. But there used to be a time where that was unique. But then you notice that over the years, then everyone started to copy that. So you tend to walk around all the tuition center neighborhoods and everything, and you tend to see that all the time, like small class size, what's the other one? The MOE teacher, ex-MOE teachers, and stuff like that. So same thing with like the fail to A thing. I think one of the very common messages I see right now is the jump 3 grade, jump 5 grades, that kind of message. So it's not that the message itself doesn't work, but it's more like if everyone else is saying that, then you need to go one layer deeper, or you at least need to go like half a layer deeper, just to say, this is how I do it differently to jump the 3 grades or the 5 grades. But I would definitely say that, I mean, special note that at the end of the day, I mean, parents go to tuition to get results. I mean, that's the central promise. That has always been the core promise. And I think for tuition, that will never change. If it changes, it kind of like becomes enrichment instead of tuition. So in that sense, bearing in mind that doesn't change, but the awareness level might have changed because like this is quite a common message. So then you need to go a bit deeper to kind of like add a different layer to it. So sharing like the stories again is a unique way of doing it. That's a bit different. So like saying how a parent you help reach this grade rather than just saying I can help you jump 3 grades, that kind of approach. Yeah.
Okay. So what you're saying is about the story. So I have a question about how specific must the story be? For example, right, I know many primary school tutors, they teach many subjects because their students have those needs and they can deliver. So for example, a tutor can be teaching English, maths, and science at primary school level. So should they create 3 stories for 3 different subjects? Or what if I teach primary school and secondary school math? Do I need to create 2 stories for 2 different levels?
Yeah, maybe Gary, you can. I mean, it could be client sensitive that you don't need to share the center name.
Yeah.
But probably you can share as a story. I think story can all of us can remember better. And our tutors who are watching this, they probably can relate better on how how can is the how part. Yeah.
Maybe I illustrate with like the kind of process I go through to craft story. I think that will be a bit clearer. Yeah. Because often I mean, to be honest, I can't like just pick a story often and then I change the name. I think I'll get a bit stuck. So maybe let me share the whole process and see if that makes sense. Kind of like to answer that, right? I do feel that for each kind of like subject niche, the deeper you can go, the better. In fact, my personal preference is that for that level, for that subject, is a story for that. If you're going for that kind of student, of course, we have done campaigns where we just run for like PSLE, English, Math, and Science. That kind of like is okay because those are all compulsory topics. But if you're talking about like increasingly, especially secondary school and beyond, right, then definitely you need to focus on one subject and one specific level. Like I will even tell you that Sec 1, Sec 2, Sec 3, Sec 4, all the different levels have their different challenges. You want to, I think to help a bit, you want to know what is your flagship. You want to know which is the area that you want to focus on and you want to be the kind of like specialist at that. And then you just work on one level subject niche first. I think that has worked the best for me so far. So for example, if you know that you want to help someone in Sec 2 do streaming, transit to Sec 3, right? That's actually still possible. But if you zone in on that, then you will know what are the kind of challenges that they encounter when they are streaming for that particular subject. So that can help you also. Of course, stories as much as possible, we try to take real stories. So even if you can't share the parent name, for example, right, you can always take the whole story and then you change the name so that kind of like you're sharing the true story, but kind of like still hiding the identity of the parent to keep it like private. So when we craft this kind of stories, then of course, typically we try to craft using a before, during, after kind of thing. So before, what are the kind of challenges they are facing? They work with you, and then you take them through this process. So that's the time when you also can share a bit more about your methodology. And then after that, they manage to, it doesn't always have to be an A. It could be that they kind of like went from always failing to kind of like finally getting that B plus grade, and then it's just a few months more to O levels, and then they still have time to prepare and then go towards their A and so on. So that kind of story usually helps, and also you have to think about perspectives. So you can also choose to share from your perspective, which of course makes it much easier for you to say a lot of things that you want to say, or you can share from their perspective. Or what we like to do, right, is that normally when you collect testimonials, you kind of like have a quotation of what they say, right? You can yourself say that story first, and then you end up with their quotation of what they said about you. So it kind of like you can kind of weave the whole thing nicely, because most of the time when you collect testimonials, it's usually not the full story. The full story is probably in your mind, but then the parent, of course, will not say the whole thing. So you can say your story, your perspective of how it happened. Then you end off with that parent testimonial just to like make that complete it and make it believable and so on. Yeah. Another quick one about stories is if you just share the before, during, after, it can be a bit so-called boring, or like kind of like the starting part doesn't attract people, right? So you can take a part of what's the so-called the climax of that whole story, and then you put that line up front first. So it's kind of like start in the middle of the action, then you go to the before, during, and after. So that's how you can kind of like get more attention in terms of copywriting if you're trying to craft a story that kind of like gets people's attention. Yeah. So I just like quote a generic example off my head. The kind of climax, for example, right, can be that she took her report card back, and then kind of like it was like all D's and C's. So that shocked me. So you can start with that quote, and then you can take a step back and then talk about the before scenario. So I met this parent like Patricia from a few months ago when she came, blah blah blah. Then work your way to the climax again. Then the result that they got after that, and then you end off with that testimonial. I think that's a pretty good kind of like structure to go with if you are crafting stories to kind of like brand yourself. Of course, when you craft this whole thing, again, don't just take random stories. You want to take things that this is something that you want to, this kind of parent or this kind of student is the kind of parent or student you want to attract more of. That will help it make a lot more sense than just taking random stories and then just posting them. So if it's purposeful, then it's usually going to be more effective. Yeah.
Hey, thanks.
Jeffrey, you have any question?
Hey, thanks, Gary. Thanks for sharing about the testimonial collection. I believe testimonial is also a form of storytelling and story sharing from the parents and the students' perspective. And I believe what Gary is trying to share is the testimonials don't happen by chance. So you probably want to prepare the parent or the student a little bit in case they come out with a random testimonial that is not of much, that does not reflect the full story. Am I right to say that, Gary?
Yeah. Specifically, I was also referring to those cases where the testimonial you collected is just a few lines, but you still wanted to tell the whole story. So you can tell the whole story and end off with that testimonial just to show the whole point is illustrated. So you tell it from your perspective, you end off with their quote and their perspective. That can help because sometimes I think for most parents, they might be a bit sensitive or a bit private. They don't prefer to kind of like share the whole thing. You can still get the thing from them. You can change the name if you want to, and then you can still tell the whole story from your perspective. Yeah.
I do have a question for people who lead a team. For example, let's say, I have a team. Let's say I have a team, and I am one of the anchor tutor. Okay, but I know that not everybody who comes to me, right, will be taught by me because I have a team, right? So my question is that, so in terms of my branding, would you recommend that I actually brand myself heavily, that I share all my stories and my success stories, or how should I do it? Should I brand my team or should I brand myself?
Okay. This is a very good point. That will be, I need to share, like, take one step back and share the whole story first, then it makes sense. So to kind of like illustrate the point, right? First, this is something that I learned when I kind of watched a couple of like sales trainings for very long ago. I can't exactly remember the name, but basically when people buy into you, right, they are buying into three things. They first of all, they buy into the person that's talking to them. Then they buy into the solution. That means your solution. And then they buy into the company. So I feel that if you are talking about branding for like, especially tuition centers as a whole, right, then these three are kind of like different things. So the solution, you can brand it with the methodology. The center itself, of course, you have your Facebook page and whatnot, and what your center represents. And then I still find that in general, if the center has a face to it, which is usually the founder and the founder tutor, that's usually the best. However, you can still address the other point, right, which is that for some tutors, for example, they feel that if they brand themselves too much, maybe all the students will go to them and then it doesn't go to their team, right? Then they have a lot of problems where they can't fill the other classes, but they can fill their own classes. So the usual solution we recommend for that, right, is that when you talk about the results that you have generated, then you refer to all this, you can use all those testimonials that refer for other teachers so that they know that it is you who is the face of the company. It is the center that has all this, that has your team and everything that generates the results with your methodology. So generally, this is the best approach that I find. And just to touch a bit on the negative side also, if let's say your tutors run away and then start their own centers, then you also don't need to be that worried because you have your methodology and your face also, all that to kind of like count on for your brand. So that's kind of like the holistic kind of view on it in general. Yeah, this is actually a very common question that most tutors face. Yeah.
Okay. Jeffrey, any questions?
Probably I will. Thanks for sharing about the overall perspective of branding the center and the tutor. Yeah, I hope all the viewers who are watching this have a better insight on a little bit about the branding between center and themselves and storytelling. Okay, so we'll probably move on to the next question. Okay, so yes, I'm supposed to take over the next question. Yeah, so my question is a little bit about history. Okay, I'm not asking you about about Chinese history. Okay, but it's more about why you do what you do. I'm always very curious. I believe all the viewers here, all the tutors here, they will be very interested. Okay, why do you choose to occupy the niche of tutors or educators or tuition center and choose to serve them in terms of marketing and branding? Why not other sectors? Like, for instance, you have real estate, you have, all these are more lucrative. Yeah.
Got it. I mean, there's a few parts of that for sure.
Journey.
One of that is when I was in uni, one of the like startup dreams that I had was to start a tuition center. So it was part of like a side project in one of our uni courses, right, which is like minor in entrepreneurship. We actually got like two other friends and also my girlfriend, and we kind of like started the tuition center for like a couple of months. So long story short, we were trying to rely on the traditional ways. I mean, I didn't know anything about marketing at that time, but my friend was the tutor, and I was trying to like get traction and all that. In the end, I think like after a few months, we maybe stopped at like, we got like 2 students, and we had to kind of like close down because of that. So we kind of, long story short, I closed down and then I go back to school. Then the second encounter that I have with tuition centers again was when I started learning about digital marketing. So I was working for...
Sorry, technical issues. I was trying to reply to a Facebook viewer. They have a question, but I'm trying to probably mute myself.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. No worries. So after the second encounter was, of course, when I started learning about digital marketing. I was working for a company, and then just happened to be that we were doing like a high ticket program for tutors and stuff like that. So Ever since then, that has been about 5 years ago. And since then, I've been kind of marketing for tutors ever since. So in terms of, I kind of like found like a bit of joy in terms of I couldn't be a tutor, but now I figured out the tuition marketing kind of like framework. So that's like part of it. The other part of it, of course, is there's also a strategic reason. For a lot of like marketing agencies out there, they tend to be a bit more general, a bit more generic. So they only they focus on like different industries, and they just take whoever comes across. It's the same as for tutors, right? Why I recommend that you attract a specific profile and not just any parent, right? It's kind of like the same logic. If I only work with tutors, then as like a whole process and the whole in terms of business, it just makes sense because I'm also not operating with a big team. It's just me and my girlfriend working on this business right now. So if we just focus on one industry, then it kind of like makes sense, and it's also easier for us to kind of like make everything more efficient and stuff like that. And of course, my whole portfolio, I mean, 80% of my projects are tutors, so it just kind of like makes sense that way. Yeah, yeah. So that's the whole kind of story.
Thank you, Gary. Thanks for sharing why. Sorry for the hiccup. I was replying to a viewer. I hope they have questions, okay, and we'll have some live response. Okay, so back to Jason.
Okay, so Gary, if I would like to ask, say, is there any one thing, right, that an average freelance tutor, let's say if I'm just a one-man operations, I just started out maybe for a couple of years, and I may not have a lot of budget. Is there anything that someone like me can do right away to start my branding journey?
Okay. Actually, there's a couple of things you can actually do. There's a bit more like on a budget kind of thing. So one is, of course, I think no matter what, I think it makes sense to create a brand for what you teach. Like you don't have to just be branding by your name. You can have like, for example, I think Jeffrey has like Ace Your Econs or something, right? So I think it's definitely good to kind of create a page just to set the context of like what your center is about or what is it about. Maybe you incorporate a company, maybe not, but I think it doesn't really matter. So when you have that, then kind of you at least have a kind of base to build your brand on. Then of course the next thing that you want to do is again work out your unique methodology. So that gives you two things already: your brand and also your unique method. So this is all like internal stuff. When you kind of like firm the base, then of course in terms of like actual execution, then you can definitely do things like a lot of social media platforms are very active right now. You can go to parent groups and then you can share some advice without selling anything. Because if you sell something, you might get kicked out of the group. You can always go to groups that are relevant for you, like math groups, Chinese groups, so on. You can definitely write stories, write posts, and then share some advice that will help parents in that particular group that can help. So from there, actually, it should get you some tractions. I've seen like tutors getting some like private messages from doing that. Of course, these are not really usually projects I work on, but kind of like advice I give along the way that kind of like helps. Yeah. So there's definitely things you can do on a budget. Of course, if you talk about advertising, then a $5 a day budget can go a couple of ways. Maybe you're not getting inquiries every day, that kind of thing. But if you have a $5 a day budget and then you learn some basic Facebook ads and then you run some posts, that might actually work out as well. So that would be, if $5 a day times 30 is just 150 a month. So that one is still a bit more like affordable for most tutors. Yeah.
Oh, you mentioned about Facebook ads. So to run an effective ad, I suppose we have to go back to what you talked about just now, working out your story and your target group, the methodologies and so on, right?
Correct.
How about running the ads? Do you recommend any courses, or do you have any advice for people who actually want to run the ads for the first time?
Oh, okay. For first time running ads, right, I think Facebook actually has a free course. I think it's called Facebook Blueprint. So if you kind of like Google it, then you should find because I mean obviously it's in Facebook interest to kind of teach educators people how to do marketing, right? So I think you can definitely learn the basics from there. Then of course it must be paired with like good copywriting. So when you follow the story thing that I mentioned just now, The only difference is if you're running an advertisement, of course, at the end, you want to have some sort of call to action. So either they can contact your phone number or they can click there and then a form comes out and stuff like that. So you definitely want some kind of actionable step for someone who's interested to find out more, and then you can do a consultation with them and whatnot.
Okay. For yourself, do you run any kind of programs to help tutors who may want to go one notch higher, or they are already doing something basic, but they want to do it even better? Do you train people to do that?
Okay. Yeah, I do have. So like my training programs are basically like online courses, and then I've kind of like compiled everything I got on like tuition marketing and things like that. So if you go to my website, which is tuitionmarketingformula.com, then you should be able to find the access to kind of look at the course and then see if it's like suitable for you. Yep. So that kind of like covers everything from the copywriting aspect, how to craft your ideal parent, ideal student, the methodology, and of course also running ads and all that. Yeah, running Facebook ads. Yeah.
Okay.
So Gary, you mentioned about running Facebook ads. So it's all about ROI lah. Okay? and personally, yes, I have dabbled with Facebook ads. Okay, in the past it used to be it used to be really good, you know. You just run like, you know, $5-10. Your ROI is actually so much higher. But these days it seems like everyone is doing the same, you know. If you say run video ads, everyone is doing video ads. So and in a marketplace there is really so cluttered with so many advertisements. What is your advice to tutors? Should they look at Facebook alone, or should they diversify their marketing means? I don't know whether they have a referral program, or even if they don't have a referral program, what do you think they should do? Should they have a referral program? Should they? What? Yeah, I just want to hear your thoughts on that. First thing on the info age of so many info being cluttered, and the prospect being totally bombarded left, right, center, don't know what action to take, then don't take, and how effective overall effectiveness of Facebook over the years, and other alternatives to reach out other than Facebook.
Got it. So let me take a step back and then like kind of outline the whole thing again. So in general, right, for acquisition costs for Facebook and Instagram or whichever, it definitely is going on an upward trend. The reason because like more people jumping on the platform, and Facebook works like an auction. So basically, if there's only so many views, then the more people they are bidding, then of course the higher the cost. In terms of specifically for tuition, the thing that I definitely see is that the older the child, then the cost per acquisition tends to go up. A possible kind of like hypothesis for that is for most parents, right? The older the child is, the kind of like less control the parent has over the child. And it becomes like a lot of decision making, which kind of like affects the sign up process. So for example, give you an example, if the child is in primary school, then basically the child has to kind of like take whatever program the parent signs up for, right? I think no question about it. If it's like when you start to take a look at upper secondary and junior college, then of course the child also has an opinion. And they may want to, for example, follow their friends. They may not want to kind of like listen to what the parent recommends and things like that. And also in ads, generally we are almost always running to parents. Of course, you can also run to 15 to 18-year-olds, but it requires, of course, a very different kind of messaging and so on. So the strategies will kind of like tend to be a bit more complicated when it comes to like towards upper secondary and towards junior college. That's why the cost per acquisition also tend to like go a bit higher at that point. To answer the question on the platform, I definitely think like referrals are a big way to go. I mean, when I look at centers, when centers inquire with me, I also look at like, are they suitable? Am I a good fit to work with them? one of the things I definitely look at is, are they getting a lot of referrals already? Because if they're getting a lot of referrals, then I know that to a certain extent that the program works. And since the program works, then when we get them more students, one student doesn't mean one student. One student can mean 2 or 3 students because the student refers. So definitely referral program, I find that a lot of net referral, if the program is really good, honestly, a lot of the referral tends to be natural, right? Because you're just good and then kind of like people refer you and things like that. Very light incentives is possible if you want to look at building your referral program, but you should not focus on like a money kind of thing for referrals, because frankly, most of the time people refer because they find the program really good. So we try to use like non-monetary approaches, which is a bit better for like educators. For example, I mean, parents are quite straightforward. It can be like vouchers and things like that. But for students, for example, you can kind of like ask the student whether they want to kind of like bring their friends down. And then after that, maybe you can get them like a pair of Starbucks vouchers or like movie vouchers and so on. So there are a lot of like unique ways if you want to build like referral programs, but you make it like a bit light at the same time, not like a hard. Definitely you don't want to go a hard sell kind of approach when you're an educator or tutor. Yep. That's on the referral side, which I agree. Definitely, you want something working on the referrals. If you are not seeing like very ballpark, but if like every 10 customers you have, you don't have like 20-30% of them referring, I think something is probably wrong. And you either got to examine your whole teaching framework or you got to examine something else, on your relationship with your customers and things like that. Maybe something can be built there. Of course, tend to be the case that tutors that communicate closely with their customers, that means the parent is kind of like the paymaster, right? So when you communicate closely with them, then you tend to get more referrals as a result of that as well. Yeah. So definitely, yes, if you have a good referral program, then you can afford to acquire customers at a so-called higher price because they will also refer more clients to you. So we have a lot of cases where the tutor acquires their first 50, this tuition center context, of course, so the numbers are a bit bigger. They acquire their first 50 to 100 students. And then from there, you can see the referrals start to like snowball the thing, snowball the center out of control, and they kind of like grow very big because of that. End of the day, tuition is definitely, referral is one of the pillars of like tuition, and that hasn't changed. So the co-marketing aspect is more of like, if you want to grow beyond a certain speed, if you are comfortable at your current speed, right, then maybe it doesn't really matter to you. You can just survive on referrals and things like that. Until, of course, sometimes it happens where there's a generation, we call that batch graduation. So when one whole batch of your parents graduate, then maybe they don't refer the next generation to you, and then you like have a big drop because of that. So that's one of the reasons. The other reason is you want to grow faster, then you need to rely on co-marketing. But with co-marketing, we are not expecting it to be the most profitable. We are using it to kind of like get people in. Normally, on a kind of like, we normally put very good offers there so that people can be incentivized to try it out, right? And then once they become your clients and then they refer, that's where I definitely think that's where the true profit is at. Yep. So hopefully that helps to add a bit of like perspective. Co-marketing will never be referral marketing in terms of cost per acquisition, that's for sure. Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Gary, for sharing.
Yeah. Okay. So sorry. I do apologize for the aeroplane flying through. I live in Sengkang, so this is a place where there's a lot of airplanes flying all the time. I hope you can hear me. So I want to shine the torchlight on something that what some of us may be doing wrong. So actually, there's this question is that what is the top 3 things that tutors or tuition center owners, right, tend to get wrong about branding in your years of experience with working with tutors and tuition centers?
Okay, I think one thing is definitely they think that advertising is different from branding. I think either way, when you're advertising, you're effectively also branding, because kind of like the whole point of branding is also just to get yourself out there, and then with the kind of message that you want to put across. Sometimes most tutors also mistake branding as like the short, cheesy words kind of thing, like having a slogan and things like that. Also not the case. Like actually, give you an example. Like if you can pay like the same amount of money to get either a small classified ad or you get a full page on the newspaper, you'll definitely get a full page, right? So it's the same thing with like when you're putting your messages out there. Do you necessarily want to put small, short messages when you can actually spend a lot more time to kind of like explain your methodology, talk about your stories and that kind of thing? The very mistaken assumption is that people don't read long posts and long messages. They actually do, because I've done this for 5 years and I know that for a fact. So branding is not like short, cheesy stuff. Branding is also not about like colors and logos and all that kind of thing. Definitely, you want some congruency in your messaging. You want to, you cannot be one day you're blue, the other day you're pink, and so and that kind of thing. But that is not really the most important thing when it comes to branding. I would say the most important thing with branding is you have a clear kind of a message or what you stand for, and then you just keep putting the same thing out there. For some clients, I mean, if I want to water this down and make it simpler, for some clients, it can be as simple as we know what is the methodology that they stand for, and then we just keep talking about that methodology. Over some time, you say that methodology and people will actually recognize that on the street and so on. That's when you know that your branding kind of works. So one clear message that you keep repeating, that will definitely work very well.
Sorry, Gary, to interrupt. Okay, we have a viewer live response. I hope we are ready to take the question. Okay,
Sure.
so Cheng Hao actually left a comment. So he actually asked, what does one do to market or brand or position themselves on Facebook/Google for Zoom group tuition? Or I would say online tuition. I would say Zoom is just a platform, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts or your experience with that? Thanks.
I think definitely the most also depends on like I will probably recommend different things depending on the level and things like that. But in generally speaking, then I prefer the free sample approach the best. So because that's the most straightforward way to kind of like show people, okay, come and experience this one session, and then if you get a good experience out of the session, why not like continue on for more sessions? So it's the same example. A good comparison would be like food samples when you go to like Takashimaya food, what do you call it? The thing where they have all the events and all that kind of thing, right? So you don't want to make your sample paid because it doesn't make sense. If someone like ask you for 50 cents for a paid like food sample, you'll probably not try it at all. So you want something that is feasible for you to deliver, that you run on a consistent basis. This is a free, a complimentary way for people to experience your teaching or experience like how you teach and things like that. You can do that with videos as well. It doesn't always have to be like a free class or whatnot. So if you can showcase that, and then you have some kind of way for them to, easy way for them to again experience the next step, that would generally help. So for example, if they experience something that is free, followed by maybe they try a 2-class or 4-class trial with you, followed by they sign on for like longer term with you and stuff like that. I generally like to go by that approach so that it's kind of like a smooth transition versus like something that's a bit more aggressive. The other thing is, of course, like how do you get the attention of like the right people and all that? Of course, one way is definitely to write ads. The other way would be to again, if you find relevant groups, parent groups and all that, where you can showcase and then share a bit of your knowledge, then you can do that as well. Then of course, the other way is to maybe invite your current customer base to kind of like, you want to do a free webinar for them and their friends kind of thing. Then they can bring their friends along and things like that. So those are different ways that you can market and so on. Of course, for every, it doesn't apply for every tutor that you write on your Facebook profile and then you can kind of like get the right parents on that, because the assumption will be that those people are your friends, then they can see your posts and things like that, right? So just want to take note of that. The posting on your profile is works for some people, but isn't the only way as well. Yeah.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks for sharing. So I hope Ching Hao has got his answer. So in a nutshell, okay, if you're trying to establish yourself if you're establishing yourself in the online realm, you probably would want to consider having free trials, okay, with very low barriers to entry or low risk, okay, for your prospect parents or students. So yes, we do have another question today. I think we are getting traction towards the end. Okay, so this is from our Uncle John. Uncle John, he's also in our WhatsApp group. Okay, so I think all of us are familiar with him. So he asks, how can we encourage parents to recommend their tuition services to their friends? How can we tap on parents' word of mouth? Okay, leverage on parents. Yeah, I think very specific towards parents. If I'm not wrong, I'm reading the post, the text itself. Yeah.
Got it.
Thank you.
So, firstly, maybe to set some context, I'm also not a referral specialist. I just want to put it out there that I'm more of the advertising specialist. So, of course, if you ask me about advertising and all that, I can go a lot deeper. Then I go with referrals. But here's something that I think, from what I've observed, it works. You want to think of like, when you do marketing, for example, to someone that, let's say we talk about co-marketing, right? Then you're looking at what are the kind of problems they are facing, and then kind of like how to help them solve it, right? You want to do the same, but then these are, I think the closest reference will be these are your current customers. What would be interesting enough for them to recommend more of their friends to you? So the very straightforward way would be to definitely, I mean, for a lot of people, if it's a close friend or that, honestly, if their friend is facing that problem and then you happen to be their tutor, most of the time they will recommend anyway. But to kind of like drive up a bit of the incentive and things like that, you can go out of your way to create like find ways to create special value for these parents' friends. So how can you give value to like a parent's friend? Like, for example, doing a free kind of like sharing. Let me give you one. Okay, example I can think of right off the bat. Of course, there are better examples out there. Let's say this is a parent that is in P6 and they just finished, their child is going to finish the PSLE, correct? And then they are going to Sec 1. You can, in theory, do a Sec 1 transition kind of program. Maybe you can talk about like how to choose your secondary school, what to take note of in Sec 1 math, Sec 1 science, and so on. And then you invite this parent and you ask them, are there any other friends that you want to bring along also, which may also be facing like their child may be graduating from PSLE and then they can also benefit from the workshop. That would be the most straightforward way. You kind of like just create value. You run events to share more about your knowledge and things like that. Same way you can do it for when the major exams are coming. You can do it at the start of the year when they are kind of like transiting to the year and so on. So kind of like think of how you can give these parents friend value, and then to them it's kind of like, oh, it's good value and I want to share with my friend, and maybe I will even come along myself, that kind of thing. That will make the most sense to me. I'm quite, I think we have tested quite a lot of like reward kind of incentive, which is the most straightforward. Right? People think like you give like a $50 or $100 kind of incentive. I find that actually most of the time it's not the main thing why people want to refer, because to be honest, like if you refer your friend and then they sign up and then you get the $100, you feel like you're betraying your friend a little bit also, right? Kind of like maybe you're betraying them for money or you're not. You want to get out of the way. You want to give value in ways that I prefer is a bit like non-monetary, or it's a way that benefits their friend. You know, like if you recommend your friend, they can get a discount, that kind of thing. That is different from like you rewarding the parent and things like that. I find that a lot of parents are not that money driven to say, I will keep recommending you just to make money for myself. I never find that to be the case. Yeah. So hope that helps.
Thanks, Gary. There is also it seems like this referral thing has been hijacking this this direction. Yeah, but generally there is also one more related direction towards referral. So this tutor or center owner is actually concerned that parents these days are very competitive. So how do we get competitive parents to refer? So based on what I hear, I think in the gist of that is basically why the parent refer, right? So is it because they want their fellow relative, family, friends to do better? Okay, or is it because I don't like what you say, monetary concern is definitely not a concern. Yeah, so it is the true intention of seeing your family friends children succeed. Okay, but if we ever have too many of this kind of kiasu parent, then unlikely there will be a lot of referrals coming out, right? Yeah. Okay, so I'll pass on the mic back to Jason.
Okay, so I keep forgetting to thank you for doing all this sharing for all of us. I'm speaking on behalf of the viewers as well as Jeffrey and myself. So I'm learning. As you can see, I'm really paying a lot of attention, and I'm learning from you everything that you say. The next question that I have, right? I'm not sure whether it will catch you by surprise, but it is more about the current climate because we are talking about recession, and the second wave of retrenchment is probably coming. So do you have any special advice for us who are doing our branding for tutors and tuition centers alike during this very unusual period?
Got it. I think definitely there are a lot of opportunities to tap on this. A few others come to my head. So for example, right, if you did maybe kind of like you can lead certain kind of initiatives. For example, maybe you can say next year I'll take on like 5 people that come from like not so good backgrounds, but they want to do good in academics. I'm doing kind of a lookout for these kind of tutors. If you are interested, then you can or please help me spread the message and things like that. So this can be an approach that's a bit relevant to kind of like a recession kind of scenario, and it can give you a lot of like good attention as well. So maybe if you can get it viral and things like that, you probably get a lot of attention. Maybe you get other signups that way as well. But of course, like your main pack, the 5 thing is probably for people who are less well-to-do and things like that. The other way is, of course, again, you want to identify what is your segment of the market. Not necessarily that, of course, it is income-based, but of course, I do know some centers and some tutors that tend to work with more like well-to-do parents. That can be just your market also if you are doing that. If you kind of like don't segment by that and you kind of like just want to help anyone or like the kind of people you can help, no matter what is their income and things like that, right? Then of course, there can be certain incentives that kind of like pair along with that. So idea, right, is you can, if you can put all your teachings into a course throughout the whole year, I think probably a lot of tutors have a lot of recordings like this year and so on. If you can actually do that and then you package it as a course, it can be a low, kind of like low cost alternative to your kind of tuition services. So this way, you don't have to necessarily lower your fees, but you can always have a low cost approach for like certain groups of students. Another example, if you have, let's say, I've seen this done in other industries, not in tuition, but I think it's pretty interesting to consider. You can, let's say your class size is like still quite limited for like online. Maybe you want to keep to a class size of 8 and so on, so that there's activity and so on. Maybe you can sign on people who are interested, but they are okay not to have the customized consultation and things like that. So they are kind of like it's kind of like, again, another lower ticket or a lower item offer they can offer to them if, let's say, they really are facing kind of like some financial difficulties and things like that. So if it's something that it strikes a chord with the market and it kind of like follows that way, then it could possibly get you a lot of like traction as well. Yep.
Okay, thanks so much. Yeah, I think these are very good ideas. Jeffrey, I think
Yeah, okay, so right now we're actually at 5:55. Okay, our scheduled time to cut off this this interview will be at 6 o'clock. So maybe Jason, would you like to end off with a last question for Gary? I think today you're on fire. like MG. This is the first time I saw Gary drinking. I've finished my bottle already. Yeah. So yes. Yeah, so we'll let Jason wrap up with a last question and then we'll wrap up the session. And yes, any other further questions, please follow the Facebook profiles, the comment section. You can get in touch with them, Gary on a private basis, PM him. Do you mind, or you want, or probably I'll let you decide how you want the audience to get to you later lah. Okay, so Jason, would you like to wrap up with a last question?
You know what? I actually ran out of questions already. I ran out of the prepared questions, and also the question that popped up in my head. I guess it's like some of my students, right? During the lesson, always no question, but it's after the lesson that all the questions start coming up. But I really want to thank Gary today. So maybe I want to just end off with asking Gary, right? What kind of people do you think that can benefit from getting in touch with you to maybe attend your workshop or getting consultations from you? So do you have such a, offhand, do you have such a person in mind or such a group of people in mind?
Okay. I kind of get what you mean. I mean, in general, I have different solutions for different tutors, but of course, the kind of tutors that I can best help is tutors that want to grow. So typically, I mean, for some tutors, I really know that they are not really incentivized to grow. They just want like a certain number of students, then they just stay there, right? That's fine as well, but I probably can't help you as best as I can. If probably you're interested to grow, you want to kind of like get like 20 to 50 more students, that kind of thing, then we can kind of like start to like discuss and things like that. Of course, the other thing is also I'm kind of like pretty much full for the rest of the year, so probably any plans have to be like next year onwards. But if you have any questions, then I can help you to answer them, or kind of like just quick answer, help you out kind of thing. Definitely okay. You can either kind of like PM me or whatnot to reach out to me, and then we can talk. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the generous offer. So Jeffrey, you may want to wrap up.
All right, so thanks viewers for tuning in. Really appreciate all your time. I can see that we have quite a healthy amount of viewers. I never seen like about 15, 16 people watching the same video, stuck on the same video for so long. Okay, so I hope you guys like this initiative. Okay, so for this is Project Pi. If earlier on, if you have missed out what is Project Pi, this is an initiation that me and Jason have, okay, to really reach out to fellow educators to share tips and insights on how to, and we have a support group for tutors as well. Okay, so if you like to receive more or upcoming interviews or upcoming sharing sessions, okay, please join the Future Tutor Ready group. Am I right to say that? Is it Future Tutor Ready?
Future Ready Tutors.
Future Ready. Sorry for getting it. I probably should have the call to action, but the call to action is actually on the Facebook post itself. Okay, you can submit your application to join the Future Ready Tutors Facebook group. Okay, so with that, I'd like to thank Gary for making time for this. I hope all the viewers have received some form of answers. Okay, if not, you can directly reach out to Gary if you'd like to find out more what he does or engage him privately. Okay, so with that, thank you for all your time. Okay, and we will sign off together. All right,
thank you, Gary. Thank you, Jeffrey, and thanks all the viewers. Bye.
Bye-bye.